Today we're going to be editing a Spirograph image. I'm going to show you a basic editing. For your first project, you should just do a straightforward basic editing. For your second project, you should pick some type of resource image that you use and apply to your project. It could be stars, you could flip the image, you could add some type of silhouettes. It's really up to you. You need to figure out what you want to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and open up an image here that was created by another student and just show a straightforward editing. This particular image was edited on RAW in the past, so I'm going to reset these RAW settings back to the original photography settings. There we go. So this was the original image before it was RAW processed. Okay, so what you want to do is probably RAW process this image twice. Once for the color and then a second time for the black background. We want to make sure we have a really nice solid black background. So I'm going to bring the exposure down just a little bit, so because right now I'm processing it for the color. I want the colors to really come out. I don't want them to be overexposed or any area that's too hot. So I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit. I'm going to bring the blacks down. I'm going to maybe adjust the color. You know, you could adjust the temperature up. You could make it much more cooler in tone. But if you do that, you might lose some colors. You can make it a little more warm in tone. That seems to really highlight the colors a little more. You can change the tint. You know, you could slightly change the tint if you like. All right, so right there. I'm going to see what happens when I add contrast. I think I'm going to bring the contrast down because I want to show some of the lines along the edges a little more. So I'm going to bring that contrast down. Now let's see about highlights. Okay, if I bring the highlights up, it makes some areas a little bit too hot. But I might bring the highlights up just a little bit. How about shadows? No. What do you know? If I bring the shadows to the right, it really actually brings out some lines that were not previously seen. So I might bring the shadows up just a little bit. What about the whites? Okay, definitely don't. I might bring the whites down just a little bit so that we don't have any area that's too bright, like right in here. And then blacks. Okay, blacks are good. And I'm going to bring this clarification up a little bit. You notice how by doing that, it actually brings out those lines a little more that were hidden and not seen. How about vibrance? Yes, I'm going to add a little bit of vibrance to this, add a little bit of color pop. And saturation. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and open this image. So what I want to do right now is I want to zoom in. Do I have any areas that are not, let's see here, that are showing, like right here, I'm seeing a little bit of a weird line and some little white spots. Otherwise, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to go Control Plus, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit, and I'm going to check to see if there's any noise, like little dots. Looks like it's pretty good. Bring it down. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out. Now, if you have some areas that just are not solid black, you're going to need to process this a second time, and I can show you that as well. On a separate image. This one looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this layer, and I'm going to zoom in Control Plus, and using my clone stamping tool, I'm going to remove this line here, and I'm going to remove this white spot here and this white spot here. Going around, I see something there and there. So I'm just going to go carefully around and look at this. Okay, so let's go do the retouching. Okay, finally I'm just going to add a black vignette around the edges of this to just make sure it's really dark. I'm going to control minus, move this out. And just reveal this image underneath this. We should start to see a little black circle on the layer mask. Just go around this. And we should have just a little bit of white with a nice black oval circle in the middle. And this was done. Please save it in the Digital Photo 2 Spirograph folder as your final image. File, save as, and save it in the P drive, Digital Photo 2 Spirograph folder. Now, let's say you have an image that's a little more difficult, okay? So let's go back and let's check some images that may be a little more challenging. Let's see here. So this one here, 6540, is a little more challenging. Let's open this up. Go ahead and open up the raw image. We see some like weird kind of line, kind of like a purple along the edges here. So let's go ahead and adjust. Let's put this back to make sure it's all on its original setting. It looks like it is. So let's go to shadows. Let's see what happens when we move those shadows up. So the shadows definitely help to bring out some of the details in the center. If I go to the left, it brings down the details along here and here. If I go to the right, back to the middle, that's where it was originally. And then there to the right, we definitely have this kind of a ghosting effect. And kind of a line going across right here where it's purple here and black here. So I'm thinking it'd be probably best that we bring the shadows all the way down or mostly down on this. And then what we'll do is we'll see if we can bring the contrast down. See how it kind of helps to lighten this area here in the middle by bringing down that contrast. It brings out these lines on the outer edge and brings down some of this brightness in the center. You should always look around and see how it's impacting the entire image. So bring that contrast down. Bring the, that's the middle section for the exposure. I might bring it up. No. I might bring it up just a tad, but we really got this brightness here. So we may have to raw process this more than once. So right now I'm just going to raw process it for the outer edges a little bit, and then we'll raw process it again for the center part to maybe bring down that bright yellow tone. Yeah, we kind of want to make it maybe a little warmer. And then the tint looks pretty good. And then let's see what happens if we bring down the whites. What do you know? By bringing down those whites, it doesn't really impact the outer edge design, but it does bring down that intensity in the center. So that's good. What happens if we bring down the black? We're losing the line details on the here and here. So we don't want to bring down the black. We want to bring that probably back up again to about there so that we don't lose any line details here, here, and through here. All right, so then what about if we add a little bit of clarity? All right, clarity helps to pop those lines here and here and here in the center. Okay, let's add a little bit of vibrance, perfect, and a little bit of saturation. Okay, we're going to go ahead and open this image. Okay, so let's go back and open that image again. Okay. And this time, cancel. Let's open that again. We want the raw image. $6540. Okay, 6540. Here we go. Open. Okay, so this time I want to make everything on the corners completely black. So I'm going to bring those down, okay? We're going to bring the corners down. We're going to bring the exposure down so that we've got pure black along the edges. I'm going to bring the contrast up. I'm really working now for the edges here. I'm going to combine this image with the other one. I want all of these edges of this image to be completely dark. We're going to keep the clarity the same, and we're going to keep the vibrance and saturation the same. And now the shadows are fine. We'll just bring the shadows down. Highlights we'll leave where it was. Contrast, we'll leave it about there, about 45. And then open this image. Okay, we're going to do a Control All or Control A to select the image. Control A. We're going to bring it back to this image, and we're going to go Control V to paste it in. Wait, we need to do Control C first. Okay, Control A, Control C, that copies it, okay? And now we'll come back to this image and we'll do Control V. And now what we're going to do is we're going to put a layer mask on this, and we are going to remove this stuff because this center stuff, we really did a good job of doing that work on the original background layer here, right? So this original background layer right here is all our nice color work here in the middle that we want to keep. But we want to get rid of the bright little weird flares that are going along the edges here. So that's why I'm kind of bringing in this. Whoops, that's not what I want. Edit, step backward. Edit, step backward. Get rid of that yellow. Make sure I'm on my layer mask. I'm going to bring in some of this stuff here. Great, so now we got black going all along the edges here. Black here, black. We have a little few things here that we will retouch in a moment. Now we still got this center part right here. Let's also zoom in on this and make sure that everything looks good. Okay. So we got this center little section. What's going on? Right in here. I want to kind of bring some of... I'm going to reverse this so it's white over black. I'm going to make my brush a little smaller, and I'm going to see if I can kind of bring this down a little bit, just the intensity of this a little bit. You know, we're at about a 50% opacity, just kind of bringing down the intensity here a little bit. And now I'm going to zoom out, and we can see here how that really helps to kind of balance this a little bit, maybe a little bit too much. I could bring it up just a tad bit here. Helps to balance that center brightness a little bit. Right there's a little bit too much. Just looking at this really carefully here. We want to make sure that when you add two different layers that have been processed differently, that they blend well together, okay, using our layer mask. Okay. That looks pretty good. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to retouch those little white dots at the bottom there. So I'm going to use my clone stamping tool. Had to go and select the background copy because that's where all that little white spots are. Okay, looks like we got everything. So now we have two images that are nicely blended. Just to finish it off, let's add a solid color here, black, and just add a vignette just to kind of finish it off to make sure that we've got a nice black edge on this image. Okay, and we should see the nice little oval developing on our color fill vignette. There you go. That's how you just blend two images together. And when you go to add in your resource image, you can add in any kind of resource. So let's say you want to add in a texture. So I'm going to come over here to my photo demo examples, and I'm going to go to textures. And let's say I want to add in a kind of a cracked wall texture. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. I have no idea how this is going to look, right? Control A, Control C. Right now we are in experimentation mode. We're going to come back to this. Let's put it underneath our color fill layer, okay? Do a Control V. And let's try doing a blending mode and see what happens when we add in a blending mode to that. You can even bring down the opacity so that, you know, you can kind of control just how much of that texture comes through. So I'm just going through these different blending modes. I'm doing linear burn, doing color burn, multiply, darken, dissolve, normal. Normal is, it's just all you did was just adjust the opacity down on that texture. So when I highlight my word here, my blending mode word, I can kind of just quickly scroll through them. Maybe you don't like any of the way they look. So maybe you want to put in a star. Maybe you want to try flipping this. Maybe you want to try a completely different texture. It's totally up to you. You can experiment with this. The second project will be an exploration of adding in some kind of resource image, and the first one should just be a straightforward editing. If you look at some of my past students' works, that might help you. I have some works I can show you from the past.